Peace be upon you. Since we began criticizing pseudoscience, there was a frequently recurring objection summarized in,
Keep in mind one thing. If any of these Muslim scholars really disprove the theory of evolution or part of it, which means disproving all the sciences that depend on it, then why doesn't he submit his research paper and win the Nobel Prize? Why? Anyone? Can anyone answer me?
Today I will answer you, and answer those who have the same question of yours. So, according to those people, as soon as I send a strong scientific research backed by evidences where I disprove the theory of evolution, journals like Nature and Science would instantly take it, and the Nobel Prize Committee would welcome me with hugs and say, "May Allah reward you, brother. Where have you been all this time? You saved us from going astray and showed us the invalidity of the evolution theory. Therefore, we are going to award you the Nobel Prize for your great work." Great idea. Why don't I actually do it? Before I tire myself with going through this experience, let's look at the story of the research on the physiology of the hand, which was published in PLOS One in 2016 to later discuss together the possibility of me receiving the Nobel Prize. A team of Chinese researchers conducted detailed experiments which illustrated the extent of precision in the hand's function and its suitability for performing the daily activities that a person needs. The research is filled with experiments, illustrations, analyses, and equations. However, the researchers dared to use their minds. Can you imagine? They did not stop at the limits set by materialism, as we mentioned in the previous episode, which prevents the mind from deducing the clear conclusion from science, which is that these hands with their great structure must have been willfully created by a creator for specific purposes. Thus, the researchers dared to write the word creator 3 times in the paper. The Chinese team? Yes, and you will see why. In the first instance, they wrote, "The explicit functional link in the hand indicates that the biomedical characteristic of tendinous connective architecture between muscles and articulations is the proper design by the creator to perform a multitude of daily tasks in a comfortable way." In the second instance, they wrote, "Hand coordination should indicate the mystery of the creator's invention." As if the researchers were amazed when they saw this greatness, and they have every right to be amazed and astonished. Dear viewer, open an anatomy book and skim through the chapter on the hand's anatomy, or watch a video about it. We are talking about the hand to the wrist only, because it was the research topic of the Chinese team. Read about the 27 bones in your hand and the structure of the 8 bones in your wrist, which enable your hand to perform different kinds of movements. Look at the types of muscles in the hand. Your thumb, for example, needs 4 muscles to perform its various movements and functions. Ponder upon the cartilages that prevent friction between bones. Then, ponder upon the tendons and ligaments that connect different bones and connect between bones and muscles to allow the hand to make various movements. Each of them is in its proper place, intersecting with a network of blood vessels and nerves. Ponder upon how the hand is connected to the forearm and its muscles with a network of ligaments, and you can feel this when you grip and stretch your fingers. This hand that is covered with skin is an amazing world. As you go deeper, 1 millimeter at a time, you discover more ligaments, muscles, bones, cartilages, nerves, blood vessels, sheets, fatty tissues, lymphatic vessels, and more. An interconnected, intersected, integrated, and organized network in which everything does its job. An amazing world that we rarely ponder upon. How about if you move to physiology, the science of organs' functions, to see how this exquisite structure enables the hand to perform all the movements a person needs, which was the research topic of the Chinese scientific team. Thus, they had every right to say in their paper, hand coordination should indicate the mystery of the creator's invention. In the third position of their research paper, the team wrote, "In conclusion, our study can improve the understanding of the human hand and confirm that the mechanical architecture is the proper design by the creator for dexterous performance of numerous functions." following the evolutionary remodeling of the ancestral hand for millions of years. Aha! Thus, the researchers do not deny that humans descend from animal ancestors, and they used the word evolution, but they stated that there has to be some work done by the Creator in designing this hand. Perhaps they meant that the Creator guided this evolution in some way. What matters is that there is intent and will, which disturbs the notion of coincidence which the followers of the theory of evolution adhere to. The Creator! How dare you, researchers! How dare you use your minds to contemplate science to then conclude that there must be a will of a Creator who created the hand for specific purposes? How dare you transgress the boundaries set by materialism, as we explained in the previous episode? Dr. James McInerney discovered this crime 2 months after the paper was published. Dr. McInerney specializes in molecular evolution at the University of Manchester, which means he is one of those who benefit from supporting the myth of evolution and believe that their destiny is dependent on this myth, such that its fall means their demise, as we demonstrated in the episode Tarzan. McInerney tweeted, "PLOS ONE is now a joke. Proper design of the Creator, absolute joke of a journal." He followed to say, "My original tweet was strong because creationism is a nuisance to me for 20+ years. No problem, doctor, whether you get annoyed or furious. Your personal feelings are not our concern. If you could just discuss the paper scientifically." Never. No scientific discussion, no understanding, nor analysis, but merely an expression of discomfort and disgust. Darwinians launched the hashtag Creatorgate, meaning the scandal of the word Creator, mimicking the scandal of Watergate. Arguments started under this hashtag, and another hashtag, Hand of God, was also launched. The Darwinian Inquisition started, and hundreds of comments and reactions were posted on the journal's website, denouncing and mocking the paper and demanding its immediate retraction. Of course, the bodyguard of the myth, the Nature Journal, interfered and carried out an investigation into the researchers and the journal, and published it the day after the hurricane started in an article titled, "Paper that says human hand was designed by Creator sparks concern." Apparently, creationist research prompts soul-searching over process of editing and peer reviews, meaning the problem now is not about the crime that the researchers used the word Creator, rather. It is how this word passed through reviewers who had to review the research, and how it passed the journal's editors, though it clearly refers to creationism. How did they not reveal the crime of using the word Creator? During the investigation, Nature contacted Xiong, the leading member of the scientific research, and asked how he could write the word Creator. Indeed, we are not native speakers of English, and entirely lost the connotations of some words such as Creator. I am so sorry for that. As if he is saying, "People, it is a linguistic mistake. I swear by evolution, I did not mean it. I ask evolution, the only Creator, for forgiveness, and I repent to it." Remember that researchers acknowledged evolution, but they associated the Creator with it. Paul Myers, one of the Darwinians, commented, "There's nothing wrong with the data that I can see, but the authors do make a surprising leap in the abstract and conclusion, meaning their reference to a Creator." Remember this well. There is no problem with the data or the experiments, but rather with the conclusions, according to the Darwinians. When the scandal spread, some scientists who often edit papers for PLOS ONE but did not deal with this particular study started to express their innocence of the crime and threatened that the journal must retract the paper or they will resign as editors for the journal. Others threatened that if this paper is not retracted, then they, their students, and their collaborators will have no choice but to refrain from reading all papers in this journal and citing any of its publications. And not only this specific study, ultimate loyalty and disavowal. As long as associating partners with evolution was committed in one of this journal's papers, they disavowed the entire journal. They do not take its goods and leave its mistakes. Rather, they drop the whole journal from their consideration to condemn it, to show their disbelief in the creator who was once mentioned in it, and to affirm their loyalty to the gods of evolution. This truly reminds me of Abu Jahl, Umayyah ibn Khalaf, and other pagans who threatened that they and their clans will not have dealings with the clan of Bani Hashem, nor marry from them, nor get married to them, nor buy, form them, nor sell to them as condemnation for protecting the prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. Note, dear viewers, that the lead researcher, Xiong, is a renowned scientist who currently has 86 published papers. PLOS ONE is also a reputable journal that won the award for publishing innovation in 2009 from the Association of Learned and Professional Society Publishers. However, as soon as the word creator was mentioned in the journal's pages, the journal became a target of anger and ridicule for Darwinians, and one that must be boycotted. This is exactly like what Jews did with Abdullah bin Salam when the prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, asked them about him. They said, "The best of us, the most superior among us, and the most educated among us." When they learned that he became a Muslim, they said, "He is the worst of us and the most ignorant among us." However, dear viewers, there are fair people among the Darwinian alliance, so let's see what those fair people said. The evolutionary biologist, Mark Robinson Richavi from the University of Lausanne said, "I do agree with more or less everyone that it is inappropriate to mention the creator with a capital C in the paper." So if a small c was used, then it could be said that the word creator here is metaphorical and refers to nature and blind selection. But with a capital C, it is clear that it is referring to the creator, with whom everyone has problem believing in or even mentioning. Richavi continues, "No human process is error-free. What matters now is how PLOS responds to this error." Meaning, all sons of evolution are sinners, and the best of sinners are those who repent from the sin of mentioning the Creator. Under this huge pressure from every side and corner, and because of this bullying, the journal published an announcement on the same day the objection started, stating that it has been made aware of the issue and is looking into it in depth. It then published again on the same day an apology for mentioning the word creator, and how this indicates that the language of the paper was not addressed well by the editors. Can you imagine, dear viewers, the panic implied by these consecutive declarations? The journal was terrified of losing its audience, becoming bankrupt, and having its staff laid off. The next day, on March 3rd, 2016, the journal announced that it will retract the paper. Notice, not just retract the word creator, but retract the entire paper, since the paper has become a disgrace to it that must be disposed of. The journal apologized again for the errors and oversight that led to the publication of the paper. Undoubtedly, for the scientist, retracting the paper means destroying their efforts, ruining their academic future, and preventing them from acquiring research funding in the future. It may even mean that they become bankrupt and end up polishing shoes on the streets. It might even result in more than that, since they are in China and had received their funding from a Chinese foundation. The researchers tried to convince everyone that it was merely a linguistic mistake and that the original Chinese word was mistranslated where it originally meant nature. The lead of the research team said, "We meant that the hand is a proper design by the nature, result of evolution. We will change the creator to nature in the revised manuscript. We apologize for any troubles may have caused by this misunderstanding. We have spent 7 months doing the experiments, analysis, and write-up. Please, could you read the paper before making a decision? In other words, people please look at the experiments and science in the paper before you kill it due to a linguistic mistake." However, investigations showed that the academic editor listed on the paper, Renji Han, had previously worked in the Chinese Evangelical Church in the Iowa. That's it. The charge was confirmed. Just like national security courts in Arab countries, where the accused had spoken to someone who greeted someone who accompanied someone who is believed to have thought of committing the crime. If you search for the paper in PLOS ONE's website now, you will see at the top, retraction, and the confession that the word creator was approved by the editors. Even though the journal repented in goodwill for the sake of evolution and not merely retracted the word creator, but retracted the entire paper as a declaration of its loyalty to the holy evolution calf and disbelief in the creator, its reputation was still affected. If you search for the journal in Wikipedia, for example, you will see the title Creatorgate engraved in its records, meaning the scandal of the word creator. Moreover, the impact factor of the journal dropped from 4.4 in 2010 to approximately 2.8 in 2018, which is an indicator for the frequency of citing articles from the journal. The urgent and very important question here is, were any of those who attacked the paper and the journal discussing it in a scientific manner to prove that the structure of the hand and its functions do not require a creator who creates with knowledge and will? Did any of them publish a scientific article to prove that all of this can happen by coincidence, randomness, and blind election? Rather, did most of them even read the paper? Of course not. There are no scientific discussions on this topic from those science bullies, just irony, ridicule, and disgust. And when Allah is mentioned alone, the hearts of those who do not believe in the hereafter shrink with aversion. But when those worshipped other than Him are mentioned, immediately they rejoice. They just mock and attack for, how dare you mention the word creator? The matter should have rather been called Idiot's Gate or Ignorance Gate, the scandal of ignorance instead of Creator Gate. There isn't any scientific proposal, rather it is all based on a presumed absolute preamble. You should never mention the Creator. You should never question the gods of coincidence, unintentionality, and tinkering. You should never question evolution. Has He made all gods into one God? Indeed, this is something strange. Okay, why is it strange? Discuss with us scientifically. And the eminent among them went forth, saying, carry on as you are and stay faithful to your gods. Come, the evolution gods are being assaulted. Indeed, this is a thing intended. There is a conspiracy against the gods. After all of that, dear viewers, let's repeat the question that we started with.
Keep in mind one thing. If any of these Muslim scholars really disprove the theory of evolution or part of it, which means disproving all the sciences that depend on it, then why doesn't he submit his research paper and win the Nobel Prize? Why? Anyone? Can anyone answer me?
You might say, but the objectors are asking you to publish a paper that disproves the theory of evolution, or parts of it, not a paper that mentions the Creator. We had shown, dear viewers, in detail that the theory of evolution simply means no creation. Its contents have been completely emptied out, and its pillars have fallen successively. Despite that, its followers redefine it every time, and do not attempt to look for an explanation outside its umbrella, because excluding the theory entirely simply means acknowledging creation. Thus, publishing a paper that disproves evolution exactly means a paper that acknowledges creation. Some of the Darwinian researchers themselves questioned its pillars. They questioned the randomness of transformations and blindness of selection in papers published in Nature and other journals. But what they can never question is one thing: the belief in coincidence and the disbelief in a creator. As long as you agree with us on this level, you are free to criticize the theory, redefine it, suggest another form of it, and publish to your heart's content. What matters is that at the end you write evolution, because it is the word that means no creation, no purpose, and no wisdom, but absolute coincidence. Well, as you have even questioned randomness, there must be a will. No problem. It could be microbial intelligence, cellular intelligence, bacteria choose, bacteria decide, or intelligent viruses. You can attribute the will to anything, but never mention the Creator. Brother Ahmad Ibrahim, a specialist in pharmacy, wrote a scientific paper, the content of which proves the presence of intent and will in the existence of beings, where he used the expression conscious intervention. Without declaring the disproof of the theory of evolution or the existence of a creator, he sent it to one of the scientific journals. Its editor, Dr. James McInerney, rejected it and tweeted on his account, saying, "Sent paper to review this weekend." Slightly odd paper. Finally figured out it was creationist, something about conscious intervention, science-like, recognizably garbled. But with spam journals, we can expect many creationist papers published in future. Brother Ahmed tried to discuss with him on Twitter, but he got blocked. Note, dear viewers, that these people say, the existence of a creator is supernatural, metaphysical, and untestable, and they claim that they deny it for this reason, as if random evolution is a natural and a testable idea, as if the formation of a cell by coincidence and its development into all kinds of living organisms by coincidence is a phenomenon witnessed in nature and passes when experimented. We showed in the previous episode the invalidity of restricting science in the natural world, and that the creator's existence is inferred by the mind, and that rejecting inferences of the mind means dropping science itself, while the myths of pseudoscience are neither inferred by science nor the mind. Of course, we assert, dear viewers, that these global journals contain, on the other hand, useful knowledge that we can benefit from. Indeed, those who follow the journey of certainty know that we cite research from Nature, Science, and other major journals. We present these research to those who did not confine their minds to materialism in order to lead them to the Creator, regardless of whether these papers had led their authors to Him or not. We cite discoveries, data, and experiments from Nature and other journals, but when it comes to conclusions that require reason, we are not prevented from them by the whims or psychological issues of the Creator's enemies. We take what is right and leave what is wrong, whereas the submissive followers want us to take what the West has as a single package. They say, how can you cite papers from Nature and Science to disprove evolution when the researchers themselves believe in evolution? They resemble the words of the secular Turkish poet Ziya Alp, who said, we want to take everything the West has, even the germs in their bellies. We say to them, no, thanks. Keep the germs and the intellectual dirt for you. We, thankfully, have minds that Allah honored us with. We also, with no doubt, agree with the principle of peer-reviewing scientific papers before publication. I personally publish in peer-reviewed journals in the field of pharmacology and have also participated in reviewing scientific papers. Does the above mean that Darwinians have full control over publications in global journals? No. But the most renowned journals like Nature, Science, Cell are controlled by them, and most of the other journals as well. They are also in control of the Nobel Prize. You might ask, doesn't this indicate the validity of the theory of evolution and the reputability of materialism? I would say, in recent years, homosexuality has gained great dominance and power such that those who denounce it are detained, imprisonment, and persecution. Does this indicate the reputability of homosexuality and that it is right while mankind's condemnation of it before was wrong? Or does this indicate that mankind is now in a period of collapse in innate nature and impairment in the standards of morality, science, and all other fronts? Say not equal are the evil and the good, although the abundance of evil might impress you. So fear Allah, O you of understanding, that you may be successful. Your use of their control of the renowned journals and the Nobel Prize as evidence is a well-known logical fallacy called the appeal to authority. If we infer the validity of something from the abundance of its followers or their dominance, we would enter a growing snowball that is based on illusion. The abundance of followers amazes imitators, which in turn increases followers and the cycle repeats. We have not yet talked about the politicization and bias of the Nobel Prize, but we have shown you in sufficient detail how the scientists who won the Nobel Prize in chemistry one year, how their research had, in fact, successfully proved the failure of the theory of evolution. However, the Nobel Prize website titled their prize, "They Harnessed the Power of Evolution." The website used this picture to denote the prize, and they reversed the facts as we showed in detail. This is in addition to the politicization of other Nobel Prizes, such as the Nobel Prize of Literature, which is given to those who are distinguished for attacking Islam and ridiculing the Quran and the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, as well as the Nobel Peace Prize, which is given to the most brutal criminals like Menachem Begin, Shimon Peres, Yitzhak Rabin, and other leading criminals. Therefore, the title of the episode, "Will I Get a Nobel Prize?" is just for mockery, as we would be dishonored to receive a tainted prize like the Nobel Prize. Once again, there is no doubt, on the other hand, that many of those who were awarded the Nobel Prize in Sciences have made real contributions. Yet, getting awarded with this prize is not an evidence of validity. What a wonderful thing Dr. Hussam Abu al-Bukhari, may Allah hasten his release, had said. The most dangerous thing that happened to the Muslims' mindset over the past 2 centuries is that they started to look at themselves, their religion, and at other Muslims around them from the perspective of their enemies. Many Muslims now evaluate everything using the standards of their enemies and do not trust the validity of anything unless it gets their stamp of approval. Imagine if Muslims at the beginning of Dawah were told, instead of talking to commoners, go and ask the powerful men of Quraysh to allow you to ascend the Kaaba so you can preach in front of all people and prove to them with evidence the absurdity of their gods, Allat and Al-Uzza, and call them to worship Allah. You either do this or your dawah is not convincing. Those who say, publish a paper that disproves the theory of evolution. So there isn't any published research on this topic, right? Then what about this list published by Discovery Institute? I have read many of its papers and sorted it. Some of these papers do not criticize evolution plainly, while on the other hand, a good number of them, which are published in journals that are recognized in the scientific research community and have good impact factors, plainly criticize random evolution, or state that there is intent or design in living organisms, but of course, without daring to mention the word creator, like the Chinese team. So did those parroting, go ahead and publish a paper that disproves evolution, have a look at these papers and read them? Or do they not even know that they exist, but merely stick themselves forcibly to the loudest trend which they call the scientific community, when in fact they neither added to nor detracted from science, nor have they ever been in a research lab in the first place? An important note here, dear viewers, that we agree with many of these studies on the fact that the universe and life did not come by coincidence, but we do not imitate them in using the term intelligent design. We use the same principle of not imitating or renting out our minds which we used with Darwinians, with those who adopt the term intelligent design. Even the word design denotes a process that has its known steps and stages. It starts with preparing a small model, then goes through cycles of review, adjustment, testing, and feedback, until the designer can select the most optimum solutions or designs. Hence, design is a human process that stems from not knowing the outcomes, which does not suit the absolute divine knowledge. It is a process that goes through 2 phases: concept, then execution. This is what design is, whereas we believe in the Lord who says what can be translated as, when we intend something, we only say to it, be, and it is. The universe and life are indications not of an intelligent design, but of an all-knowing, capable, and wise creator. Thus, we benefit from the useful information put forth by the supporters of intelligent design, but we do not imitate them, not even in their terms. Our approach with everyone is, who listen to speech and follow the best of it. Due to all that we mentioned, dear viewers, those who say, publish a paper that disproves the theory of evolution, assume that the problem with the followers of pseudoscience is a problem of evidence, such that if we present convincing evidence in a scientific paper, it will be the knockout punch to the theory of evolution, and the scientific community will have to admit the collapse of the theory, and its followers would be ashamed to talk about it after this knockout punch. What we aimed for in these episodes is to demonstrate to you how all scientific facts in the universe would lead those of sound minds to the Creator and His attributes. However, arrogants deny these signs, and some of them even use these same facts to infer absurdism and coincidence. How would you convince such people of the invalidity of the theory of evolution or the other myths of pseudoscience with which they attempt to fill the gap of their denial of the Creator? What evidence would refute the theory for them when they presume it to be unquestionable, such that it does not tolerate the element of falsifiability in any case? Rather, whenever its pillars collapse, they assume new and more comical assumptions to retain the name evolution. What picture is expected to make a blind person recognize beauty when they have locks upon their hearts? Do you expect that once they are presented with facts, they fall upon their face weeping and the Quran increases their submission? Their problem is not that of evidence. They do not even discuss evidence with minds free of whims, complexes, and sickness of the hearts. Hence, evidence is not considered as evidence to them. Rather, it may be evidence of the exact opposite, which makes them an instance of Allah's saying, which can be translated as, "They will not believe even if every sign should come to them until they see the painful punishment." It is very important to understand this, dear viewers, to avoid making the mistake done by some people who counter atheism, but unfortunately without knowledge. Such as someone, when talking about what he considers to be a myth about atheism, said,
"The fifth myth is the myth of the knockout punch, where some think that they can deal with atheists using the logic of Muhammad Ali, and that there is a decisive response to all their statements and arguments. This is simply not possible, at least not for all arguments."
So, he believes that atheists have arguments that we believers do not have a decisive responses for. While we read in the Quran, and those who continue to debate about Allah after he has been responded to, their argument is invalid with their Lord. We also read in the Quran, rather, "We hurl the truth upon falsehood and it destroys it, and thereupon it departs." Hence, when you see atheists disbelieving, it is not because we do not have a decisive response that destroys their falsehood, but because the response is useless to them, no matter how clear it is, since they are not seekers of truth. And as long as they are not then not only cosmic signs, but also, as Allah says, what can be translated as, "And even if we had sent down to them the angels, and the dead spoke to them, and we gathered together everything in front of them, they would still not believe unless Allah should will." But most of them are ignorant.
And that there is a decisive response to all their statements and arguments. This is simply not possible, at least not for all arguments. The prophets themselves could not do that. So why should we delude that we can?
The prophets, peace be upon them, could not guide polytheists because polytheists do not follow evidence. Otherwise, the prophets had the decisive response to all of the polytheists' false claims, as well as tangible miracles. A stick that turns into a snake, a sea that was parted, and each part became like a big mountain, a feast that descended from heaven, a she-camel that came out of a rock, and a moon that got split. Despite that, but of no avail will be signs or warners to a people who do not believe. So when you tell me to publish a paper that disproves the theory of evolution or the other pseudoscience theories, I will say, for people of sound minds, all real science published by Darwinians or others disproves the myth of evolution. And the research that I published in my field also disproves it. This is because every useful study in any field indicates the perfection and uniformity in the phenomena of the universe and life. As for those with unsound minds and corrupted hearts, it is as though you are saying, publish a study to convince those who do not want to be convinced or submit to the truth, who takes his desire as his God, and who are closed-minded and fanatic for their ignorance. Then we have nothing to say but, say to those who do not believe, act according to your position. We are also acting. And wait, we too are waiting. To Allah belongs the unseen of the heavens and earth, and to Him every matter is returned. So worship Him and place your trust in Him, for your Lord is not oblivious of what you do. May Allah's peace be upon you.
وقل للذين لا يؤمنون اعملوا على مكانتكم إنا عاملون وانتظروا إنا منتظرون ولله غيب السماوات والأرض وإليه يرجع الأمر كله فاعبده وتوكل عليه وما ربك بغافل عما تعملون